Think about the last person you fell hard for. That magnetic pull. That feeling like you'd known them forever. Like something just clicked. Now think about the one before that. Do you notice a pattern? The same emotional unavailability. The same push and pull. The same ending. If you've ever looked in the mirror after a painful breakup and asked yourself, why do I keep attracting the wrong people? This video is for you. Because here's what no one tells you. It's not bad luck. It's not a curse. It's psychology. And once you understand it, everything changes. Let's start with something that might be a little uncomfortable to hear. The people you're most powerfully drawn to aren't random. Your brain is running a program in the background, one written before you even knew what love was. Psychologist John Bowlby spent decades studying how our earliest emotional bonds shape everything that comes after. His theory, which we now call attachment theory, shows us that the relationship we had with our primary caregivers in childhood becomes a kind of internal blueprint, an unconscious template for what love is supposed to feel like, what we expect from others, and crucially, what feels familiar enough to call safe. Here's where it gets really interesting. That template doesn't always point us toward what's good for us. Attachment theory tells us that the way we were loved, or not loved, growing up literally wires our nervous systems in particular ways. It teaches us what to expect, what to tolerate, even what we have to do to earn closeness. If love in your early life came with unpredictability, your nervous system might have learned to mistake anxiety for passion. If love came with distance, you might crave the chase over stability. If love came with criticism, you might feel most at home when you're constantly trying to prove your worth. This wiring isn't conscious. It runs below the surface, like software you didn't install and can't easily see. So when you meet someone new, your unconscious is scanning constantly. Not for kindness, not for compatibility, for familiarity. And when it finds someone who matches that early emotional blueprint, something lights up. It doesn't feel familiar because it's healthy. It feels familiar because it's known. Researchers have found that people often end up in relationships with partners who confirm their existing beliefs about attachment and relationships. In other words, if deep down you believe you're hard to love, you will unconsciously seek out someone who makes you feel exactly that. Our brains seek coherence, not happiness. We would rather stay in a painful pattern than step into an unknown one. And then there's a concept that psychologists call repetition compulsion. Sigmund Freud first observed this pattern over a century ago, and modern psychology has since built a much richer picture of it. A repetition compulsion is a psychological phenomenon where a person unconsciously repeats past experiences, particularly unresolved ones, in an attempt to finally master them. It is, at its core, an attempt to go back in time, not physically, but emotionally. Maybe this time, your unconscious whispers, I can make someone like this love me the right way. Maybe this time I can fix what went wrong then. This is why someone who grew up seeking approval from a distant parent may find themselves again and again drawn to emotionally unavailable partners, trying once more to earn love. The pattern feels magnetic, not because it's healthy, but because it's familiar. And here's the cruelest part. By choosing familiar partners, people often guarantee the opposite of the resolution they're seeking. The wounds don't heal, they reopen. Now, repetition compulsion also has a partner in crime, trauma bonding. When a relationship cycles through intense emotional highs and lows, the nervous system responds in a powerful way. Intermittent reinforcement, affection followed by withdrawal, actually strengthens attachment rather than weakens it. This cycle can feel almost addictive. The unpredictability keeps your nervous system on alert, and over time, that feeling of being activated, of longing and relief, of chaos and reconciliation, starts to feel like love itself. It can look a lot like passion from the outside. But it isn't passion. It's anxiety wearing passion's clothes. There's also something called the familiarity heuristic, a cognitive bias where our brains feel safer around what they already know. Research using facial recognition studies has shown that people rate faces resembling their own parents or themselves as more trustworthy and attractive. From an evolutionary standpoint, familiarity once meant safety, predictability, the things you needed to survive. But in modern relationships, this drive can lead us to mistake emotional repetition for genuine compatibility. We literally feel more comfortable with dynamics that, on paper, should feel like warning signs. So what does all of this look like in real life? It looks like being bored by someone who's genuinely kind and consistent. It looks like feeling a spark with someone who keeps you guessing. It looks like telling yourself there's no chemistry with the emotionally available person, when what's really missing is the familiar pain. We live in a world that glamorizes this kind of dysfunction and calls it passion. But intensity is not the same as depth. Chaos is not the same as love. The good news, and there really is good news, is that these patterns are not a life sentence. Attachment styles can shift. Research is clear on this. Someone with avoidant attachment can become more secure over time. The brain is far more flexible than we once believed. But change requires something specific: awareness. You can't break a pattern you don't know you're in. Start by getting honest about the common threads across your past relationships. What emotional dynamics kept repeating? What did those early relationships feel like? Not just the romantic ones, the original ones, the childhood ones. What did you learn love was supposed to feel like? Breaking repetition compulsion requires more than willpower. It requires awareness, nervous system healing, and intentional, deliberate choice. It means learning to sit with the discomfort of someone safe and steady, even when your nervous system is screaming that something is missing. It means understanding that the absence of anxiety is not the absence of chemistry. It means slowly, patiently building a new definition of what home feels like. One where love doesn't have to be earned. One where you are not a problem to be solved. You are not broken. Your nervous system adapted to survive your early environment. That was actually a form of intelligence. But now, you get to choose something different. The most powerful thing you can do for your love life isn't to find the right person. It's to understand yourself deeply enough to recognize the difference between what feels familiar and what is actually good for you. That's where real change begins. If this video opened something up for you, take a moment right now to leave a comment below. Tell me, do you recognize any of these patterns in yourself? You might be surprised how many people are in the exact same place. And if you found this helpful, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more research-backed psychology every week. The next video is one you won't want to miss.